good evening, everyone. To this pre-Memorial Day podcast that I'm shooting here. I'm very excited tonight to bring to you all someone that I've been watching for a while, and she's doing a lot of things that are very inspirational. Um, and just give you a brief background about her. So she's published 16 books, which is incredible, and I can't wait to really divulge more into her author and writing side. And then also she's a nurse. She also does a life coach. So if self actualization was a person, you would definitely find her picture in Google. So I am very excited to introduce everyone. This is Dr. Holly Cotton. She is based out of Houston, Texas. And
Correct.
yes, so Holly, first of all, welcome and thank you so much once again for doing this here. So what I
Yes.
would
Thank you. Like I said
so
before, thank you for inviting me. I always love partnering with people. I love collaborating. I realized a long time ago that, the best way is for all of us to be a winning team together. So I love the opportunity to come on and talk to your audience and reach different demographics than I have myself. So, yes, thanks.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to segue into your background of what makes you you. How did you get to where you are? Because that's very interesting to me, and I know in my audience in this season of this chapter of what I'm doing is really introducing the audience to women that are out there impacting their communities, breaking glass ceilings. And this kind of talks about more of what I've talked about in my second book, that's based on female entrepreneurship and women's empowerment. And I love seeing this. And you are definitely, certainly an epitome of that, of what I've seen. And I certainly want to divulge more into your grassroots of how it started and so we can find out more how you got to where you are. So,
Yes, for sure. Listen, I've told this story 1,000 times. I don't know why people love to hear it, but so be it. Um, I'm just little old me. But no, so I'm a nurse by trade. I have a master's in nursing. So I've been in healthcare for my whole life. I mean, that was what I went to college for. I've been a nurse my entire life. And in 2012, I got diagnosed with breast cancer, which was totally just a complete shock. I wasn't anticipating anything. I was never sick. I just remember finding the lump myself. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have cancer. And everyone was, no, it's not. And I'm like, I think it is. So after, from the time that I found the lump up to October 1st to getting my diagnosis of October 12th, you know, it was definitely a lot of thoughts that were going through my head and a lot of analysis and trying to figure out, what if something happens to me? What is the legacy that I'm going to leave? What is my imprint? Or my kids going to be okay? What have I done up until this point that's actually worth people missing if something does happen to me? So I just always tell the story of, that would, since that is all has been my life after, it's been, what am I going to do since then? So finally, after the recovery, after going through all of the stuff that comes with recovering from something traumatic and starting your life over again and realizing you're not dead, you're not going to die, now what am I going to do? What's the next part of my life? What am I doing? So in 2020, my first book got released, and I wrote an autobiography of Strong More Than Muscles. And it was just basically me telling my story of cancer survivorship, just like I told you. But during that time from diagnosis and healing until that first book, I was going on panels, especially breast cancer awareness events, and all of these things that were talking about women empowerment. And I told the story so many times. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write a book about this because I feel like I've told this story so many times. And then I wrote a book, and then that's pretty much where my whole trajectory changed. And you're talking about, my first book in 2020 to where we are now. So that's basically what happened. I wrote a book. I wrote a second book that was a great big giant bestseller, and I had an e-course, and that's really when I said, wow, this is actually lucrative to write a book. So then since then I have a couple more books. I wrote a book about how to write a book for everyone who asks me 1,000 questions all the time, and I'm like, hey, just buy my book about how to write a book. And so yeah, and so that's it. I have a adolescent initiative, Your Mind, Your Magic, that I do a lot of talking to, especially for mental health empowerment. I have my last 3 or 4 books are about, embracing being single for the people that are stuck in single life. I have somebody's wife or not, don't call them, F them. Like, so I have a couple of different, whatever direction I need to go in to talk, I have I can pivot whatever direction I need to go. So that's where we are. And then you found me on Instagram, and here we are.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, and I want to go back and ask you a few questions. First is now, because one I want to say is I am happy that you survived that challenge. I remember the scarcity around my mother when she first found the lump as well, and how that shook me, and how the whole family rallied around her. So bef- let's talk about pre and post. So before your book, and going through that journey, and how did it mold and shape you? And this is something I really want to inspire the audience about when you are faced with something like this. And it's not even something I've actually even talked to my own mother about when she was facing it. So when you went through it, how did you not allow the experience to really break your spirit, but really just empower you to just say, you know what, this is not going to be the final chapter of my life and me. I'm going to use this as something to catapult me to something even better.
Yeah, so I when I tell that like that example, people want to know, well, why, well, what makes your story different, or why is it, why are you telling your story and someone else that's a survivor isn't? So I always give the example of, whenever there's something traumatic that happens to us, we either embed it and we're like, I made it past that and I don't ever want to relive it again. Or you have people who take it, own it, and say, you know what, I went through this for a reason. Let me use this to inspire other people. Now, there is no judgment on either side, because some people, it was very traumatic. You lost someone, you came close to death, whatever. So, like, my survivor story is no different than everyone else's survivor story, right? Like, everyone
Yeah.
has something that almost killed them, and yet they're here on the other side. So I always try to stay humble, because people have been through worse things than just cancer, and they're still here on the other side. So I never like to belittle their I guess survivorship of whatever it was. But for me, I just said the shift was in that mindset. And a lot of people are like, well, find your why. If you hear talker speakers or people talking, they always say, find your why, find your why. I say, find your why not. And so for me, I was always like, why not me? Why not me? Why am I not telling my story? Why am I not the one on stage talking about my, with my best-selling book? Why am I not in these rooms? So why am I not doing this? Why? So for me, I'm always like, I look at other people and the stories and the way that people share their thoughts and share what they've gone through as well, I'm so proud of them. That is awesome. But why I'm not doing it? Like, why? What's wrong? What's going on? Where did I miss a step at? So that's pretty much like my thought process behind it. Well, I'm not going to stay in this dark place, because of course you go through a loss. I tell the story of how I couldn't put my hair in a ponytail because I couldn't lift my arms up after surgery. I couldn't reach over and shave my legs because of, scar tissue. I still can't do a lot of things. Even now, I'm going on 14 years and I still have scar tissue from that. So, it's just about, well, instead of me sitting here and saying the things I can't do, or, well, why me, or whatever, I'm like, okay, well, I see them doing this in the gym. Why not me? Like, what's stopping me from doing that? Or I see someone being successful in this field. Why not me? Why? Oh, they have real estate. Why not me? I'm never a sit around and try to wait for it to fall into my lap. I'm always like, that looks like something I could do. What's the difference between me and them? They have a little bit more education. They have a little bit more experience. Okay, well, let me figure it out so that I can be there too.
Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you this here before I segue over to something else I wanted to ask you. Is now I have learned through my journey how important being in the right environment helps to face certain challenges in life. So by you living in, I take it you lived in Houston your whole life. So by you being in Houston and having your support system, tell me, how has Houston really helped you throughout this journey to get to where you
Oh, it has not. So originally I'm from I'm from
are? Okay.
Louisiana, born and raised. This is where I spent most of my days. So when I was,
Okay.
when I graduated at 17, I went off to LSU. After that, I moved to DC for a few years. And then my dad actually lived in Houston, and so relocated from DC to Houston about 20 years ago. So I've been in Houston for a long time. Um,
Okay.
Houston is not like a really good growth city for people
Okay.
who are trying to grow certain things, because I say that when you're in proximity of a lot of people that are trying to do what you do, it's very
Right.
difficult for people to support you. I'm not saying that they were unsupportive, but if I'm trying to figure out how to tread water and not drown, it's really hard for me to push you up to where you need to be. So Houston is not a big city like Atlanta or LA, where, there's a lot of opportunities, especially in the media field, which I had a podcast show for 2 years. So, like, I had to figure all of that stuff out on my own. There weren't any authors that I saw that had numerous books, that had numerous streams of income from one book. I had to sort of figure that out on my own. So I love
Okay.
Houston. I definitely am always the one that's supportive of everyone. But my brand really, really, really took off when I started having an international base, when I started having national contacts, whenever I started getting outside of Houston. That's when I was like, oh, so I'm sitting here running around in Houston trying to get these people to support me or follow me or buy my product or do this. And the key to it is having an international base, because then you're going to, other spaces. You're even national, like, get out of your hometown. So no, I don't believe that Houston was monumental in my advancement at all. I love it. I think,
Okay.
I love the people I meet, but there is not a lot of people here doing what I envision myself doing. So it's hard for me to take advice, or for me to, pass someone up that's trying to do the same thing and they're supportive of it.
Gotcha. Okay, and now I've learned something new about you. We've
Mm.
both been in the Washingtonian area. Okay, see, DC has a way of, that's a whole nother impact. I would love to find out more about that. But I want to go into now your writing journey, because this fascinates me because I'm a writer myself. Now, for you, writing 16 books, congratulations. That's incredible. So, what compelled you to write? I know every writer has its story, but and the level of diligence and perseverance to write, and setting aside the time to do it. And so walk us through that thought process and how that journey began, from going from book to book here, and which book had the most impact for you. Because I know when I wrote my autobiography, bringing up those emotions again and writing, there's a certain level of vulnerability you have to give up, because you're sharing a piece of yourself with the world. So how did that also impact you and preparing your mindset for that and giving up that vulnerability to share with the world? So I really would like to learn that whole journey of you on that.
Yeah, well, again, why not me? I was like, why don't I have an autobiography? So honestly, I literally just pulled out a laptop and I just started telling my story. Like that's how my first book came to fruition. I literally just went through, it was funny because I had like some stuff in there where I did feel that there were some times during my survivorship, the story of my diagnosis, where I feel like, my ex-husband at the time wasn't the most supportive. I did talk about like some challenges with my kids. And then, it was a lot of going back and revisiting and saying, is this really what I want my story to talk about? Like, I want to make my story about me, not about the people around me that did me wrong, or I want it to be positive. And sometimes when you give the wrong things energy, people focus on that. So I wanted it to really just be positive. And I tell people whenever they ask me, I'm like, well, what do you want to write about? And they're like, well, I want to tell my story. I'm like, okay, well, what's significant about your story? And then they'll say, oh, well, I survived a car accident. Okay. I was like, people get, survive car accidents every day. What's your story? Like, what is the part? No one cares about your story unless you're winning. So what's your win? No one wants to just hear that you survived something. Okay. And what are you doing with that survivorship? How are you impacting the world? Why are you still here? So I think that to me, that has been a big selling point for me, because people see my second life. They see the way that I live. They see my energy. They see how I am. I only give one version of myself no matter where I am. Like, this is who I am. Like, there's just one version of me. I don't pretend to be, even when I'm Professor Cotton, I'm still Holly Cotton. I don't switch it up. I'm just the same person all the time. I have a big heart. I'm loving, I'm a nurturer. So that's who I come in all the time. And I think people can see that when you're authentic. So for me, being vulnerable is very easy for me because it's part of just the genuine person that I am. So I don't have a problem, doing anything. I don't have a problem if someone else is telling a story. Like, I will, and I see that they're crying or they're upset, I'll be the one that gets up out of my chair and goes and gives them a hug, or I'm the one that's going to walk to the restroom and get a Kleenex for them because they're crying about their story. I don't need to be the center of attention. I was doing something the other day, and the lady, she knew who I was, and she was like, why didn't you tell them all the stuff that you did? I was like, because I don't need to do that. I don't need to go in and say, look at me, look at me, look at me. You're going to want to look at me afterwards, just because of the presence that I leave. So for me, that's how it is. And I don't have a problem with being vulnerable and, telling stories, but I think the key to it is just, for the support, is being authentic. And then what is your story that you're trying to tell? What is the imprint that you want to leave? Like, I have a list on my phone of when people look at me, and sometimes I have to go back and reread it because I want to make sure, while I'm off being, a hot girl, or while I'm doing this, while I'm doing that, like, is this still aligning with what I want? Is this still, when people look at my social media, when people look at me, when people meet me, is my heart still in the right place? Am I still staying humble even though I'm successful? Am I still being, approachable even though I have a level of fame? So it's like navigating that. Sometimes you have to check yourself and be like, okay, the reason why people started to love me, I want them to continue to love me throughout. So I have to make sure I stay authentic.
I like that. Very well said. Very well said. So out of all of your books, which one do you get the most? Because from what I can tell, you write different genres like I do. So, okay. So, which one is your favorite genre you like writing, or is it kind of all the same?
So I love talking to single people because I'm like, listen, when I wrote Somebody's Wife or Not, man, the men, I was going at it with the men because they were like, you'll never be a wife. And I'm like, bruh, I was a wife for 17 years. Like, don't come at me. So like I'll go on people's, podcasts, or I'm talking about stuff, and I'm speaking to people and women, and I'm like,
Right.
listen, yeah, I'm not saying that being in a relationship is not something that we all obtain, all attain to do. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying that when you get to the point where you're on a teeter-totter of determining your worth or your value, and you think your value only depends on the title of being someone's wife, that's when I'm jumping in, because heck no, that's not true. So Somebody's Wife or Not is definitely a book that was very funny, and it was fun for me. And then that sort of put me into this whole different pivot, because I was just going around like, being positive and doing stuff. And then after that, getting called in to do relationship stuff. I'm doing all of these shows. All of a sudden I'm like a single person spokesperson. And I'm like, I didn't say I was single. I said I'm talking to the single people. Y'all need to stay out of my business. Like, I'm still talking to the people about self-love. So I think that was kind of like where I said, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe I can go in a different direction. And all of my books still revolve around the same thing, which is self-love and also self-improvement. So no matter where you are, I'm always talking about accountability, whether it's day one, talking about your goals, or whether it's Somebody's Wife or Not, talking about single life. What is the accountability? Who is doing, what are you doing to improve yourself? Do what you have to do, get over it, and then let me help you move on. So that's for anything that I have. Like, take your accountability, and now let's move on.
Very well said. Absolutely, I agree. Accountability is absolutely pivotal. So I agree with you. Um, one of the things I wanted to ask you is because it was someone who you play multiple hats. So, and I know that you said you've been married 17 years, you have kids. So, by you wearing these different hats when you wake up every day. So, and for my audience, for that are entrepreneurs that are trying to balance work life, personal life, and trying to find that equilibrium of how important that really is for you. So, how is it that you're able to? Because I'm fascinated and want to hear this from you. Make time to write, make time to be a nurse, public speak, go to, because I've seen you go to all these different ceremonies and events. You're collecting awards over here. I'm like, how is she doing this? It's like it is quite fascinating to me. How do you balance that equilibrium without, one, being overwhelmed, two, um how do you help people when it comes to even dating as well, if you're going through that, whether you're single or not, or want to transition? Because I know this is a hard thing that people struggle with, even for me as well, as much as I work and do that. So how do you approach it and keep it all together?
That's one of the questions that I always get asked. So it because people are like, how are you literally everywhere? How are you doing so many things? And
Right.
I'm always like, because what other option is there? Like, what, am I not going to do it? Am I not going to go get an award? Am I not going to go speak somewhere? Am I not going to go on a talk show? Am I not going to do publicity? Like, that's the problem. When you hear those entrepreneurs that are talking, they say all the time, you are willing to give a company 8 hours a day without blinking. If your boss says end of business today, you're going to have whatever they said, end of business today, you're going to have it done, right? Whatever that spreadsheet needed, whatever the phone call was, whatever it was. But then when it comes to us and our personal brands, there's too many negotiables, right? There's too many, well, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, let me go to sleep early, and I'll wake up early in the morning and do it. Or let me do this and then I'll do that. Like, Why are we always negotiable with our own goals, with the things that we want? I'm not. The way that I would treat a company is how I treat Holly Cotton, the brand. If
Right.
I'm looking at something, it needs to be done in a business. I'm going to make a to do list in the morning, and I'm going to make sure 4 or 5 of those things get checked off throughout the day. And then the close of business that night while I'm in bed, instead of being on the phone scrolling on social media, I'm knocking off the last 2 or 3 things off of my list. Like, I'm not sitting around wasting time watching TV when I need to be working on a project. So I always have my iPad, I always have my phone, I work off the to-do list. And the thing about it is that you have to treat your personal brand like a company. You are the CEO of your life. And there's just too many people with excuses, because I'm like, okay, the same time that I had today, like, oh, so you went to the and you went to the gym? Yes, because just like if I was at a company, we would have had that meeting from 9 to 10 in the morning. I wouldn't have made an excuse. I would have gone to that meeting, sat in there doing whatever my boss wanted. And so that's how I look at my life. Like, there's no other outcome other than me winning at what I'm trying to do. So, and I know no one cares about me winning but me. No one is going to come and say, Holly, girl, you better go and, you don't, you need to do some press for your website? Don't you need to do some press for your book? No one's coming to me and saying that. I'm the one like, man, I need to do some press to remind folks that I have this, or I'm doing this, or I'm working on this. I'm knocking on, hey, oh, I got a adolescent initiative. What you got? Don't you have a foundation? Don't you have this? Don't you have that? Being in the rooms. But that's how I am. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Holly
Okay.
Cotton, Holly Cotton is run like a corporation, so, and no one is checking for Holly Cotton but Holly Cotton. I can tell you that.
And I totally agree with you. I like the way you articulated that. Yes, because we all are the CEO of our own lives, and that's very true. And how we get up and conduct ourselves and the choices we make is truly on us. So I want to dial back for a second and ask you something here. Going back to childhood. So when you
Mhm.
were envisioning growing up, you know, Holly, what did Holly want to do growing up? Are you living the life now that you envisioned when you were a kid? You're like, I have arrived. This is what I always dreamed of doing. Um, is this what, or did you foresee yourself in a completely different hemisphere and altitude of living?
So honestly, I'm from a small city in Louisiana, and I had no dreams. I wasn't taught to dream. I wasn't taught to have goals. I wasn't taught that there was more to life than being in the country town. And I could tell you that there's people that I went to high school with that are still in the same city. I have family that still lives in the same city. It's a city now because the population has increased, but they have never had a desire to leave. They're very comfortable living a very calm and peaceful life. They're happy. They married their high school sweetheart. They both are, out of shape and living in probably the same street that they grew up on. And that's fine for them. Like, I didn't ever have like, I was never taught that there was more to life. I just knew that this was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when I was in high school, I just kept saying, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here. Like this, you know what? Y'all can have this. I'm getting out of here. And so for me, the only goal that I had was to get out of my hometown. And then, like, I literally applied at UCLA and University of
Oh,
Miami. Like, though I wanted to go on either of the coasts, and I wound up getting a scholarship to LSU. And my dad was like, "Well, look like you're going to LSU, not these two places." So I was like, "Okay, anything to get out of my hometown." And then, from there, like I said, I moved to DC, and
okay.
then just being a nurse has allowed me to travel and see other cultures, and being out of the country. Like, I love international travel, and I'm always like, wow, like there's so much world here, and it makes me sad for people who've never been out of, the Louisiana, or been out of Texas, or whatever, just like not seeing the world. So for me, the only goal that I ever had was to get out of my hometown. And every December 31st, I make goals for the year, and and I'm like, that's how I live off, the way, that's how my goals are. December 31st, I make, 4 or 5 huge giant goals, and then I
Okay.
crush them, and then the next December 31st, I do some more. So
I
I
love
think I'm where
that.
I'm supposed to be because I keep doing stuff, so I guess so.
Well, that, you know what? And I love hearing that because that is so inspirational. And that is part of the theme of why I wanted to do the Dream Walk Live podcast, is because even in the current climate of where we're living at today, and I get it, where I've heard so many complaints from people like, the American dream is dying, this and this and this. And I'm like, you know what? You can still achieve the dream no matter what the obstacles are if you really truly have the fortitude and the mindset. And I like how you said, is the important part is at the end of every year, I'm setting some big goals that I'm going to crush. And I love that. I love it because you hear the New Year's resolutions, and then probably by mid-February they done fell off or something else. So now they're back to that vicious cycle. So how, in your eyes, you break the New Year's resolution curse? Because I have tried to give advice on this. I don't really set resolutions like that. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to continue to build on what I've been building from all the previous years. Because each year I look at it as like a ladder. You're just climbing up the steps of what you built before. So, but with your methodology and how you do it, how have you, because I can tell you inspire a lot of people and help them grow and put them outside of their circle. So, how is it that you formulated the methodology that works for you? Or who inspired you? Did you have a role model or did you have a mentor? Where did it all come from with you?
So I agree with you. Like for me, a resolution is saying that I'm going to stop doing something, and
Right.
I don't wait until January 1st to say I'm going to start doing something. If I'm doing something and I'm like, this is not getting me the outcome that I need to do, I don't need to wait until the following. I'm not going to keep doing it and having something detrimental in my life for another 11 months. Like I'm going to stop right then. So for me, I never need a resolution where I'm going to stop doing something. I'll just decide, I'm not doing that anymore on that date, right? And then I just don't do it anymore. So I think just having mental toughness, just being able to go on and figure out what you want to do. Like I said, I'll do my goals. I don't have a role model. I my role my motivation and what I want to do is I want my kids to look at me as their role model. So when I'm doing stuff, I want my kids to be like, man, my mom's a freaking boss. Like my mom did this, like my mom was doing that. And they may not say it right now because they're so over Holly Cotton. Like they're so just they're like, oh my God, another award. Oh my God. But at some point, like, I hope that whenever they are adults, and they come back and they're like, man, if my mom did it like this, I know I can do it. So for me, I don't need someone else to be my motivation. I'm my own motivation. I'm like,
Right.
every day I get up and I'm like, what can I do today? What am I going to do today? How am I going to spend this today? How am I going to do that? If I don't, and if I feel like a day where I'm brain dead, I'll go into Chat GPT, give me 4 things I can do this week to make $1,000 based off of what you know about Holly Cotton. Like, what can I do? How can I pivot? What can I do? Because I'm brain dead this week. Give me some ideas because I don't know what to do. So it's like for me, it's just constantly the same thing. It's a ladder. I explain to people that, 4 years ago, when I wrote my first book in 2020, it's just 2025. We're talking about 4.5 years of growth. So, for me, I had like write my first book, get a billboard in Times Square, speak at Essence Festival. Like things that I thought were goals. And then I was like, well, okay, that was easier than I thought. So now, all of the goals that I have, I know for each goal, there's like 16 micro goals that I have to crush to get to that goal. So instead of one goal being whatever it is, like just something vague as that, billboard in Times Square, now I know I'm dreaming so big that I have to do all these little things in order to even get close to that, which is why I'm always doing something, because I know everything is part of that 36-step micro goal to get to finally crush that goal at some point in the year.
I like that. I like that. And I'll add on just from my experience as well, because yeah, the breadcrumbs of goal setting is very important, because I know a lot of times people look at the bigger picture when they're looking at the whole apparatus of a particular goal. But I also like to just break down the pizza and just look at the toppings of a goal. Like, do we have the real foundation to really accomplish this goal? And one of my mentors, taught me a long time ago is using the SMART approach. Is it
Hmm.
specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? You know what I'm saying?
That's my book, Day One, A Guide to Identifying, Executing Any Goal. That's what I did. I had an e-course and everything. I'm like, yep, here you go. Smart goal, smart goal.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, here's where I want to segue to now, and by asking you, and now I'm very curious about, is your nursing journey and getting into the nursing field, and where that began, and how did you navigate doing that during the hardest time during the pandemic? Because I really had my hat off to you guys during the pandemic and how hard it was, a strain on the doctors and nurses, of everyone going through that. So where did the nursing journey begin, and where did that thirst for you to want to pursue that?
So honestly, I just knew I needed to do something and I needed a trade that I would be able to get out of college and get a job doing. So I was never like, I'm going to be a nurse and save the world. No, I was saying, okay. So I was the first person that ever went to college in my family. And I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anything about nursing. I didn't know anything about degrees. Like when I tell you nothing, I was a country girl living, went to LSU, went to Baton Rouge, and I had zero ideas about anything. I didn't know. So for me, that's how nursing found me, because I needed a trade. And
Okay.
I was only I was only a floor nurse for probably the first 10 years of being a nurse. After that, I've always been in administration. I'm a college professor. I teach nursing. So I don't touch people like I always tell people.
Okay.
So that part is gone. And the only reason why, because now I have so many other things that I'm doing, but the only reason why I stay a nurse now is because my health insurance is with my company, and
Okay.
it helps me stay active. So when I'm called on somewhere to be a wellness expert, I can still talk about evidence-based practice. Like when I go on panels, or when I'm speaking on, different things, it makes me like have the variety of, I am still here. I am respected as a person that's still there, so that's why I stay working as a nurse, and I don't just go and be a motivational speaker full time or live off of author money. I love what I did. I mean, shoot, I got a master's degree in it. I don't dislike being a nurse, and I don't work hard. Everything that I do, I enjoy doing. I enjoy still talking to, the people. Even in my management role, I can work from anywhere. So nursing has given me the flexibility to work from home, work from Cancun, work from wherever, so if that's the case, nothing I do is very stressful in my life. I mean, I love everything that I do. There's days like today, I was like, oh my gosh, and then I woke up feeling sick, and I said, okay. So in the buckets of Holly Cotton today, we're only going to do these four things today, and we're going to call that a successful day. And then tomorrow, we're going to have, five things in the bucket, depending on how we feel. So it's just about balancing and keeping it together. But yeah, so for me, I also as far as being a nurturer and the nurse, I also take my self-care and, my health serious as well, because you're not going to kill me. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. Very well said. Yeah, because I have learned, yeah, balance is definitely key, and setting your boundaries of where you're not going to go overboard. So, and really protecting your health and your peace. So, I agree 100% there. Well, lastly, I wanted to just ask you here because now that you are a motivational speaker and life coach. So I wanted to segue into that because I see the natural intangibles of how those two fit in because just from listening to you just today here. Uh, so where did that, how did you start weaving that in with all the other talents that you have?
yeah, because I started like talking on, on panels, and I started speaking to people. And for me, I know that I like to be verified with everything, right? Like, so for me, I was like, you know what? Let me go on and get a certification, because I don't want anyone saying, now who she thinks she is giving people life advice. Now I can be like, a certified life coach, so for me, it was just more about, I want to make sure that I am equipped and I am knowledgeable about speaking about things, because I do know that there is a lot of responsibility that comes, especially now with me being in these adolescent mental health fields. I'm talking to young kids now, I'm talking to young adults. Like, I want to make sure that I'm a reflection and that the things that I say are appropriate, because sometimes I say things too and I forget that I'm talking to you. I might say something like, I was doing a panel, I was talking to some girls, and I was talking about, I said the word sexy, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said sexy, because it was such a broad age range. It was high schoolers, but there were also some tweens in there. And I was like, oh, I probably should have said a different word, but I was trying to be relatable. So for me, it was like sort of a learning situation. But yeah, so it just, like you said, segued into that, and from speaking. And then I was like, well, let me just make sure that I'm qualified to be doing this. So I don't want to just be someone on Instagram that's talking off the top of their head. I want to, which is what I said about being a nurse. I don't want to be the one that's on the wellness panel. Excuse me, stuffy. I don't want to be the one on the wellness panel, and I haven't set foot in a hospital or anything in healthcare in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know the struggles of what's going on, on the floor, or I don't know what nurses are dealing with. Like, I don't want to be that person. So when I'm on a panel, I can be like, yeah, well, I know, because yeah, when I'm teaching a class, I'm actually out there on the floor. I'm seeing the nurse fatigue. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm staying abreast of the new medication. So it's just very important for me to make sure that I am someone that's qualified to be doing the things that I want to do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Dr. Cotton, I will say thank you so much for today and for your time today. And ladies and gentlemen, I will say, as you've heard her today here, if, like I said, self actualization, she definitely has her picture beside it, truly. But also is, you know what? I mean, definitely go check her out. Her books, they're on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I say, and
Everywhere.
yes, and then
Anywhere that
yeah.
sells a book. We don't discriminate. We on Walmart.com, Target.com, whatever your flavor is, and whatever credit cards you got, we got a book in there.
Love it, love it. Yeah, so check out her website, drhollycotton.com.
Holly Cotton. So everything about me is Holly Cotton. So hollycotton.com, HOLLYCOTTON.com. All my books are under Holly Cotton, which is my pen name, is my regular name. And my social media is all Holly Cotton. The only one that has Holly Cotton underscore is Instagram, because someone stole the original Holly Cotton, and she only has like 100 followers, and I don't even think she's active, but she stole our name. So we have to do the Holly Cotton underscore on Instagram. But yeah, if you Google me, I come up when you Google. I'm Googleable.
I love it. I love it. And it's great. I love meeting another person that's from country girl small town like myself, because me, small town Virginia, you're small town Louisiana. So, me being from the South and you being from the deep South, that's two different South right there. I have learned that when, because I have friends of mine that are from Louisiana, and we talked about this in undergrad. And but yes, so like I said, it's such a pleasure interviewing you today and speaking with you. And I want to thank you so much for your time. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, please reach out to her. She's definitely a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. And yeah, so everybody have a good evening. Have a blessed Memorial weekend.
Thank you.
Well, I will stop that.